I'm really excited to hear you talk about this new paradigm that you're going to introduce to us. So, and of course, you don't need any introduction from me. You can take it away. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Rao. Give me a thumbs up if you like to eat plants. Give me a thumbs up. All right. And if you don't have your camera on, please put your camera on and play along. And let's see, 2 thumbs up. Give me 2 thumbs up if you know that eating plants is the foundation for nurturing a just, compassionate, healthy, sustainable, and well-fed human presence on Earth. 2 thumbs up. All righty, you are in the right place. So grateful to have you here with me today, and I'm so grateful for Climate Healers for putting on yet another really phenomenal event. So welcome again to this session, Whole Food Plant-Based Veganism, Changing the Paradigm. I believe that veganism in and of itself, and this might be controversial in this room, but I believe that veganism in and of itself will not bring about the vegan world that we all want and need. I believe that it will take a marriage of veganism and whole food plant-based lifestyles to be successful in our revolution. And I'm really excited to explore this proposition with you. It's an interactive session. I want to hear your input. I'm going to share some things, and I'm going to open it up now and then for some input from you as well. As we know here in this room, the power to care for the earth and all of life kind is in our hands and on the ends of our forks. So I want to start off right away with a little poll, and I'll just ask you to put your responses in the chat. And I just want to acknowledge that it's possible that not everyone in this room is vegan. And if you are not vegan, I am so grateful you are here, because if all we're talking to is vegans, we're not expanding our movement, right? So if you came because you are curious, or because you think it might be something that you should do or want to do, or if you're almost there, or even if you're never going to go all the way plant-based, but you're moving in that direction, I just want to say welcome and thank you for coming. And there's no shame in being here in this group. You are very welcome. So wherever you are on the continuum, whether you're curious, whether you've been whole food plant-based and vegan for years and years, whether you're vegan for the animals, whatever it is, wherever you are on that continuum, I would like to invite everybody to put, what was your initial reason for moving to or towards a plant-based or vegan diet? So just put it in the chat. It could be health, animals, environment, or other reasons. Mine really has to do with spirituality, but these 3 that are listed are the top 3 in most studies. And I'm going to ask for a volunteer here. Maybe I'll ask for Ray. Ray, would you be willing to tabulate the results? And I'll ask you to report back in a little bit. Just see how many people for each of these reasons, and then give us a percentage in a moment or 2. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so put it in the chat and keep putting in the chat if you haven't started. And I'm going to move to the next slide. So in a 2019 online poll that was called Adhering to Dietary Approaches for Personal Taste, there were about 2,000 people that were surveyed, and they were all people that followed popular diets, right? And there were about a little over 1,200 of those people that described their diet in some form that the researchers called plant-based. Now, some of those were vegan, some were whole food plant-based, some were vegetarian, and some were pescatarian, but they all got, to some degree, lumped into this 1,200 plus. And then there were about 800 others who were omnivore, okay? And when they just calculated the results from those who were some form of plant-based, 79% said that their initial or strongest reason for going plant-based was health. 28% for the animals, 17% for the environment, and then there were some other responses as well. But if you broke it down by category, the vegans, the people who identified as vegan rather than whole food plant-based, were still up in the low 70s, and the whole food plant-based were in the low 80s. So it averaged to 79. So it was still the top reason, even amongst people who consider themselves vegan and not necessarily whole food plant-based as far as the survey goes. So let's see, Ray, do we have a number? And we'll probably have to ask somebody to unmute Ray. The suspense mounts. I'm wondering, do we have 79? It might be a really different configuration here. He's still calculating, so I'm going to come back to that. Oh, it looks like you got it. Okay.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, so out of 15 people that responded, 9 are for the animals, 4 is for the environment, 1 is health, and 1 is sort of other.
Wow. Okay. So we're really different here. And this is Vegan World 2026, right? So that's interesting. That's great. But just please know that even though, you know, this group feels very strongly like the main reason is the animals, that worldwide, that's not necessarily true. Okay. So health is the overriding. And I've seen this in many other studies as well. There's been some difference. It depends on how you ask the poll. But primarily, most of the polls have health pop out significantly on the top. So I want to say something a little bit about this veganism and whole food plant-based eating. They're not necessarily synonymous, and there's many definitions of both. Okay, so a whole food plant-based diet is typically from those of us actually in the movement is usually considered some form of a diet that's entirely plants and that primarily draws most of its nutrients from 5 food groups, right? From legumes, which is beans and lentils, from whole grains, from vegetables, fruits, and nuts and seeds. But there's even a lot of people out there who say it's whole food plant-based when it includes some amount of animal products. So there's some confusion there, or there's some difference of opinion. Okay, when I talk about whole food plant-based, I mean really a broad spectrum of different diets that include only plants in their whole or minimally processed form. So that could be a starchivore diet, like Dr. John McDougall. It could be Joel Fuhrman's nutritarian diet. It could be the Daily Dozen from Dr. Greger. It could be a totally fruitarian kind of situation. But if it's all plants and it's whole or minimally processed, that's whole food plant-based for the purposes of this time together. Now, veganism, that is also defined differently as well. Some people do use it synonymously. They'll say, they come to me often, people at the festivals will say, is that vegan food? And it's like, it's suitable for vegans, but I don't consider that what we're serving vegan food, because Oreos are vegan food, Coca-Cola, there's all these foods that are vegan that aren't necessarily whole food plant-based, right? So I say, well, it's all suitable for vegans, but we go one more. We make it whole food plant-based because we want it to be good for you, good for the earth, and good for all life kind. It's not enough just to be good for the animals. It's like, who's going to be tending to those animals if you're not taking care of yourself? I don't usually talk to people like that on first meeting, but that's our perspective. So my perspective about veganism, it's really not a diet. It's both a lifestyle and an ideology. And it's an ideology that says, to the greatest extent possible, we're not going to harm any living beings for our pleasure. And I include you. I include the bodies, the minds, the mental health, the well-being of the people on the earth with the other animals on the earth when I say not to harm anyone to the greatest extent possible. And I know not everybody considers that part of the definition of veganism, and I respect that. Because there's so many definitions of both, and it's fine. However, it makes sense to you. So, so as I said, a person following a whole food plant-based lifestyle may not be vegan. They may not identify with the ideology, but in many cases they do get there. And they may use their purchasing power to endorse cruelty, for example, by buying leather or attending circuses and things like that. And then a vegan may not be on a whole food plant-based diet. Okay, so this is kind of probably baseline for most people here. But I want to say that neither veganism nor a whole food plant-based diet by itself is going to result in the paradigm shift that is needed to maintain the habitability of our earth. In fact, the vegan world that we're ushering into existence cannot come about through veganism alone. And I really believe that to be so. If anybody wants to push back, I'm fine with that. But I want to tell you some of the reasons that I believe that this is so. I really believe that a whole food plant-based lifestyle is necessary for several reasons. The one that I'm the most passionate about, I mean, I almost want to cry right now because I'm very concerned about this, is that if you think again, what percentage of people join our movement, some part of our movement, our kind of conglomeration of movements that are all moving in the same direction, you know, almost 80% by that study, and many others are pretty similar, they're doing it for their health. And the reason is that decades of really good research of every kind has shown the health benefits of a plant-based diet. And in many cases, they call it a vegan diet, like PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They do a lot of research and they call it a vegan diet, right? They say a low-fat vegan diet. They don't say plant-based for whatever reason. So people associate this idea of vegan with these studies that demonstrate, you know, all different kinds of health benefits, right? And mental health benefits and mood, all sorts of things. So what happens is that this has been happening for decades. My mom taught me that red meat and processed meat causes cancer when I was a kid, because that's how early this stuff was out there, right? And during most of that time, if somebody was vegan, they were eating whole food plant-based primarily, because there weren't a lot of other options, right? So we've entered a new time now where there are a lot of options. So at this point, we have this health halo. I call it a health halo because as a result of this research, vegans have acquired this this halo, essentially this aura that veganism is healthy, right? So that's what attracts many people, most people to our lifestyle. So in more recent years, we have the advent of these meat alternatives, and the way they get closer and closer to the mouthfeel and the flavor and the experience of meat and dairy is that they tweak the formula so that it's as close to meat and dairy as possible. And meat and dairy is full of all these unhealthful substances, right? Saturated fat, you know, heme iron, very, very calorically dense, high in salt, high in fat, high in sugar. And so we're mimicking that to try to give people that close experience to being on meat. And then we're making junk food essentially. And then I'm also concerned about the bioidentical dairy, right? They're making ice cream out of dairy, but the dairy didn't come from a cow, or they're, you know, doing lab grown meats and things like that. And so this is a great concern to me, because the biggest door, we've got all these doors that people could come through: spirituality, health, animals, you know, environment, whatever the door is. And the one that's the broadest and that has the biggest highway coming into it, of people coming into our movement, we're choking it off. You know, we're in danger of eroding this health halo with these foods. In addition to an emphasis on whole, unprocessed foods, whole food plant-based eating is also really important for us as activists, as individual activists, so that we can stay healthy, so that we can maintain health into our later years, so that we can have tons of energy, so that we can be great spokespeople and models for the movement, right? And another thing that's really important is that whole food plant-based eating disrupts a food system paradigm that's rooted in capitalistic greed and exploitation and in extraction and destruction, right? So the food industry as it is, whole food plant-based completely disrupts that, because people can go out and plant a seed in their garden, right? Or they can join a community garden or a food buying club, or go to their local farmer's market, and they can nourish themselves that way. And they don't have to be dependent on these huge corporations that, as we saw in the last movie, do not care about the earth, do not care about the living beings on the earth, and do not care about you, right? So if we're investing in whole plant foods, we're stepping outside of the system. On the other hand, the vegan junk food and processed food industry, you know, they're making tweaks that make it somewhat better for the environment, but not as much better for the environment as, you know, eating a bean burrito or whatever. And it's marginally better for human health because it doesn't have cholesterol in it and it has some amount of fiber. But it really is keeping the status quo, which is that the whole food system is managed for the purpose of making money. The bottom line is making money, the accumulation of money and power for very few people and corporations. And it's not rooted in the cause of all life thriving within the boundaries of a habitable earth system. So we can't count on alt meat and alt dairy products to really upend the current paradigm and move us along on this revolution. Now, that doesn't mean there's not a place for these things. I really love that my omnivorous son and his wife eat a lot of vegan food. Like they eat plant-based many days of the week, and a lot of it's whole food plant-based, but they like to go out to restaurants. They're in LA and they go buy these products, and they're buying those products instead of buying the flesh of a burger, of an animal, or, you know, the secretions of an animal. So like, I love that there's this place for them, but let's not, as the movement, rely on them to help us do what we need to do here and what we're called to do, which is really to be stewards of the earth. So, you know, I don't have to tell people in this room that environmental destruction is happening on a mass scale. But the reason I think about it, I don't think animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change or these other issues for which we have pushed out of the safe and just zone of planetary boundaries. I believe that the cause is that we are out of right relationship with the earth and all of its inhabitants, out of right relationship with nature. And so these are vehicles, these are industries that are created because we're out of right relationship. And when we move ourselves into right relationship with the earth as stewards of the earth instead of as exploiters of the earth, then that's when things can change. And it's all about understanding the sacredness of all life for me. And when enough people understand the sacredness of all life and really, you know, feel our deep connection to this beautiful Mother Earth, out of which we have come, of which we are made, and to all the other life forms with whom we share the planet, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our children. Like when enough of us know that, these corporations will lose their power to be able to manipulate. And so for me, it really is about this integrity piece, that as we're understanding that our job is of stewards, of nurturers, that we will want to nurture ourselves as well. And we will want to nurture ourselves more than we want to assuage our taste buds and indulge in our addictions. So I just am feeling from Jamie Logan a little bit more freedom than I might have otherwise too. What did she say? Say something controversial. Like, I think I probably just said something a little controversial, and I just, you know, it's like, this is how I feel. This is for real. And for me, I think another really important bottom line is it's about human spiritual integrity, because most people do not want to harm any living thing for any living being for their pleasure, right? That's not what people want to do. That's not what we're made of. And yet most people are supporting this incredibly cruel, incredibly destructive, in fact, the most environmentally destructive industry of all, because that's the system we're in. And as we move more fully into spiritual integrity, I believe we will feel more moved to want to take care of our own bodies and those of other people around us as much as we want to take care of the animals as well. And I think it can be, one thing I want to say is that even though I have just said how important it is for us to embrace whole food, plant-based lifestyle in addition to veganism, you can't do it just with that either. We also need veganism, right? Because when people are eating whole food, plant-based, I actually saw a recent study that was from Faunalytics. It used to be the studies all showed that health reasons were not as strong in terms of recidivism. But the latest study from Faunalytics came out saying that it didn't matter which door you came in. The recidivism has more to do with how much you identify with it and how committed you are. And then the other part that's really important, that's still holding true, is that the more reasons you have, the less likely you are to recidivate. But when we get people to come all the way in, and veganism helps with that, because if they're whole food, plant-based just for their health, and someone tells them, oh, bone broth is going to do this, blah, blah, blah for you, it's like they get on this slippery slope, right? But if we can keep them long enough, many people will start to have that vegan ideology. And I think this is really critical, that we get people to understand that even whole food, plant-based does not mean that you can eat animal products, because as long as you're eating some animal products, it's really hard for people to cut through their own cognitive dissonance around doing something that they know that is wrong. And so it takes somebody moving all the way to fully plant-based in many cases to be able to understand or be bold enough to say, this industry is wrong. It's wrong to hurt animals. This is not okay. And so I think veganism is really important. Vegan ideology is really important, and it provides a framework in which we can understand the sacredness of all life. And finally, I just, something flitted through my mind. Yeah, so I think that it's really important that we find ways to talk about this that help people to bypass that cognitive dissonance that invites people in. So in the organization I founded, Eat for the Earth, we want to have a really broad tent. We don't identify as a vegan organization. We don't lead with that word very often. And we want everybody to feel like they can be part of the solution, even if they don't have any intention of ever going plant-based. And many of them come in like that, and then they do go plant-based. But I think it really, that if we can talk to people in ways that help them to make that shift, that's how we're going to heal. Let me take a look at my notes. Yeah, so I think that's the main points. And what I want to do now is take a little bit of a poll here, another little poll, but it's a different kind of poll. It's a thumb continuum poll. Okay, so you're going to use your thumb to indicate on a continuum from very important or extremely important to not important at all, and everything in between is an okay vote. Okay, so you're just going to give your perspective about how important you think veganism is for the cause of establishing a new paradigm that centers the thriving of all life within the safe and just boundaries of the Earth system. Like, how important is veganism for that? Anywhere from here all the way down to here, and I'm going to kind of look along. Yeah, I figured we'd probably be pretty well aligned on that topic. And there's no wrong answers here. So so I'm going to ask the same question, but I'm going to say, how important do you think whole food, plant-based lifestyles are for the cause of establishing a new paradigm that centers the thriving of all life within the safe and just boundaries of our Earth? So from here, all the way again. Let's see. Okay, so this is amazing. There's more alignment here than I anticipated. But there's more variation here. And that's great. I love controversy. I love people to think for themselves. And I've only spoken for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. So I didn't expect to have you all over on my side yet. But we're all on the same side. Anyway, so I hope that you've been inspired to think about this thing, about the necessity of embracing whole food, plant-based lifestyles and calling it whole food, plant-based veganism. So we have both of them because they need to be married. And as we do this, as we adopt both, then we can properly have this plant-powered revolution and bring about the vegan world that we're working towards. Because we need to balance the best of both worlds, reduce recidivism, have healthier bodies, have more energy, etc. I want to, let me see, let me look at my notes and see if I missed anything. Yeah, I think I got all that in. So what I'd like to do now is I want to ask, like, how do we do this? How do we marry these two? And where are we for time? I think we're fine. We can probably take a few responses. I want to ask the question. I've got a couple of questions, and the first one is, and try to keep it brief so we can hear from as many people as possible. Like, what are some strategies that you can think of to effectively support vegans to go whole food, plant-based? And if you have any ideas, Watch Dominion has their hand up, or his hand, I'm not sure which that is. And be thinking about your answer. And then the next question is, what strategy, you can forget about this one too, what strategies are effective at supporting people who are whole food, plant-based, but not vegan, to go vegan? Do you want to unmute Watch?
Yes. Yes, hey, Reverend Bethlove, thank you so much for a great presentation. So great to hear you again. Those are really good questions. And I personally use a Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. That's a great website. They've got a ton of free recipes. And also Challenge 22 is a great website to help people for 22 days to transition them into a vegan or a whole food plant-based. And for people to go vegan from plant-based, the documentaries Dominion is really good, which shows you the ethos behind our whole quest for animal liberation. And for the health perspectives, there's documentaries like What the Health. For an environment perspective, Cowspiracy is a good documentary. And also the recent documentary on Netflix, the You Are What You Eat, the twin experiment, is really good. It's getting a lot of traction, and it's about from a health perspective. So, people are interested in their own health. They are all tuned into the channel, What's in It for Me. And if they're interested in the climate thing, then you give them the climate perspective, or whatever their heart is tuned to. You just try to talk to them on their perspective, because at the end of the day, regardless of what reason they go into veganism, it's better for the animals.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Watch. Yeah. Yeah, you got to look for what their heart is in. And then also I like the idea of giving people very practical tools, recipes, right? Apps that will help them transition. And there's a number of them out there. Thank you. I like to give people forks over knives because it's the only, they have a ton of free recipes on their website. It's the only one I know of that doesn't have any oil. I'm a whole food, plant-based, oil-free person, and that's what I advocate for. Ken. Let's see.
Okay, there I am. When somebody is approaching the question of health, my principal reason now in my life is environment. There isn't any question about it. Okay, I mean that's why I'm Climate Healers and by the work I do. But when anybody approaches me about health, for me the biggest gift, and the one that Dr. Orr sold to me years ago, was you live 12 to 14 years longer with a whole food vegan diet. And at 88, that makes a difference to me. So it's a relatively simple sell for me. And the other contrast in my life is my wife is 21 years younger than me. And so I have a reason to stay around. My son told me a couple of years ago, you're going to live to be more than 100, whether you want to or not. And it just shifts everything in your mind when you begin to realize, in your mid 80s, you're going to be around for another 20 years. I had never approached it that way, but makes a good reason to eat whole foods and to not get caught up in greenwash and foolishness. I think Dr. Rao said a week or so ago, eat the lettuce that has the bug holes in it. Don't pass that up, because the bugs like it. The other ones they don't like. So we buy all of our food in fresh markets, so we don't use a supermarket at all.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ken. Yeah, that's really just something really practical. Tell someone, well, this is, you'll live this many years longer. So that's great. That's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Are there any thoughts about how to get people who are whole food, plant-based already more toward the vegan side? And I did hear you say that some of the documentaries will work, like show them what it really looks like. But any other strategies for someone who at this point cares mostly about their own health, which is, again, the majority of people who are coming to the movement? How can we support them to make that shift so that they also value the animals and the environment and the earth? Any thoughts?
Yeah. So my thought is, help them understand that you cannot be healthy on a dead planet. So, and exploiting animals is killing the planet, So, I mean, to me, it is almost like, why don't people get it, right? Because you're saying the planet is dying and you have a killing machine running around on the planet. Don't you want to stop the killing machine first?
Yeah.
To me, it's like obvious, but
yeah,
that's how I would approach it.
That's great, because they're in it for their health, so that's a self-interest motive, and so you're still appealing to their self-interest. You're not trying to get them to care about the animal. You're just saying, like, if you want to be healthy, you got to have a planet to live on. So right. That's great. That's great. I think I saw it. It looks like Lisa Burke raised her hand.
Okay. I have just recently started doing some talks with some other people just because I feel compelled to speak out. And the focus for me is really discussing what sentience itself is. And that to me is fascinating, and it's the interface, you know, of how we have acculturated ideas about what is okay and what's not, and who do we eat and why, and how nuanced and gorgeous the whole thing is, and how science is finding, I don't need science, by the way, but science is finding, you know, so much compelling evidence that, you know, even bees are sentient, for instance, you know. So that's a place that I just feel so excited about discussing, I guess, and sort of putting learning ways to pose the questions about people's attitudes onto the individual that is intriguing, you know. How we make our choices and why we don't eat our dog, for instance, you know, is a sort of a good classic one. So yeah, I just find that fascinating, and that's really holding my interest and also is something that I want to learn more about and be able to articulate to different groups of people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. It's something about kind of finding a way to convey what it is that we know so well, but that is not common knowledge, right? So that's great. Thank you. Yeah. And this will be the last one for this. We'll have a little bit more time for questions and maybe something other interactive at the end, but I'm going to call on Dolly.
Hi,
And
Beth.
then we'll move on. Hi, Dolly. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. I was just going to say what Lisa said. You know, if you're already hopeful plant-based and you're not vegan for the animals reason, I just try to educate, like she said, your dog. You have a dog or a cat at home, and we never chop them up and eat them up. Why are we doing this to a pig, cow, and a chicken? So
Right.
I always take that route and try to educate people who are just dog and cat lovers and educate them that way.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you also made a movie that educates people.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you.
And you were pointing in that movie, you were essentially pointing out the schism between the spiritual commitment and the action, right? So you were front and centering people's cognitive dissonance around doing something that they know they're not supposed to do. So brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. So let me see. Oh, we already did that one. I used one slide for two things. Okay, so I would love to do this. I'm open to taking questions instead, but we still have a bit of time. And so I thought we could do something kind of fun here where we got some practice. And what I thought was that if somebody wants to practice, like talking to a vegan, for instance, about the necessity of eating healthy food, or talking to somebody who's in it for their health, whole food, plant-based, and doesn't yet embrace vegan ideology or even necessarily eat only plant foods. If somebody wants to practice, and I would call on two people, someone who wants to practice and someone else who wants to play the vegan or the whole food, plant-based person that is going to engage in this conversation. Is there anyone here who would like to practice talking about this? And you know, maybe you're already really experienced at it and you're willing to demonstrate for people that need more practice, or maybe you're nervous about it. You'd like to start talking to your friends and family or people out there in the community, and you're not. You'd like a little practice. Does this sound of interest to anybody? I'm not seeing any hands so far. It's a little risky, but I believe in you. Oh, good. We have a hand up. Dolly. And somebody else has got their hand raised too. So BJ. Okay. So Dolly, did you want to, were you volunteering to be the person that's talking to somebody about your case, or the person who's going to be the subject of the conversation?
I like both. I like both.
You like both? Okay.
But I would rather do transferring somebody whole food plant-based to a vegan.
Okay, and BJ, do you want to be the whole food plant-based person? And then if you want to practice too, we can switch or we can get somebody else. Oh, I can't hear you yet, BJ.
I'll do a vegan person to a whole food plant-based.
Okay, will you, okay, so why don't we have you guys, we'll start off with Dolly. You're whole food plant-based already, Rebecca, BJ. And then Dolly's going to encourage you to move toward veganism, okay? And then we can switch. Okay. So Dolly, I'm going to let you set up the context and who this
Okay.
person is.
All right. So so
before
BJ.
okay, she's already dove
Okay.
in. Never mind.
So BJ, how long have you been whole food plant-based for?
Well, it's been about 3 years.
Wow.
Good and healthy.
Wow. And what do you think about, the animals?
Oh, I love animals.
You do? Do you have dogs and cats at
I
home?
have dogs and cats. Yeah, love them.
Oh, that's so sweet. So you're an animal lover.
Yeah, I always have been.
Wow, wow. And do you still continue to eat animals or drink their secretions?
Well, no, I don't. Because of the, I followed Dr. Joel Furman's Eat to Live program. So he doesn't have he said you could have some animals on there, but I found it inconvenient.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just quit eating the animals.
Do you, by any chance, do you still wear leather or visit a zoo?
Yeah, I do that. Not the zoo, but I do have leather and yeah, I don't really pay much attention to. I don't like to read all those labels on what ingredients are what in the shampoo and all that.
Yeah. Well, I'm an animal lover myself, and once I found out about what's going on in the leather industry, and it's basically our dairy cows, and when they can't make milk anymore, and we either send them to beef or we use their skin for leather, and a lot of times these cows are coming from my country in India, and they're just cut alive. It's so torturous, and I started thinking about it, Beth, and then I was like, wow, I can always use if I wanted to wear something leather, I can just buy something that's made out of pineapples, avocados. I mean, it's this simple, or not to use it at all. I mean, I never thought of this myself, but I thought I'd let you know what's happening. And if you're already whole food plant-based, why not just make that switch to being cruelty-free and completely in your life?
Well, that's a good idea. I guess there are alternatives to leather.
Oh yeah, there's so much. I think it's called fox leather, or now they're making it from pineapples and all kinds of stuff. And
Okay.
instead of I used to take my children to the zoo until I found out it's like a prison for them. So now I take them to sanctuaries. Like, it's such a beautiful thing you can do. And so, we don't want to be supporting anything that exploits animals, since you're such an animal lover.
You're right. And you're one of my heroes. So I think I will just start in that direction.
Oh, that's sweet. I'd love to make you some dinner, and we can talk, and we can go to a sanctuary together and go shopping and things like that.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you both. I'm Beth Love. I'm in the Love House. You guys are in the Love House with me. This is how we appreciate people. We send them some love. So if everybody could join me, we're going to send some love. And you guys stay up here for a minute, but let's send them some love. And
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being in the hot seat. So what I love to do, which I'm sorry I didn't say beforehand, is if people could put in the chat some encouragement. So what did you see? Put in the chat, what did you see Dolly do that you thought was really powerful? And just put that in the chat, and Dolly, you'll be able to read it afterwards. So I want to say that what I took from this conversation is that you guys already knew each other, right? There was already some kind of a trusting relationship.
Yeah.
DJ, you said, you're one of my heroes, right? So within the context of a trusting relationship, and Dolly, you were so acknowledging of how amazing it was that she was whole food plant-based for 3 years, right? you used acknowledgement, right? And then you used curiosity. You asked her some questions, you asked some questions and you got curious. And those are two really great strategies for connecting with somebody and not putting them off. Now, if I may put you a little, so this is a strong learning experience for everybody. If you're okay with it, Dolly, I want to ask BJ if there was anything that, are you okay, Dolly, with me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So BJ, if you put yourself in the place of that whole food plant-based person who's not vegan yet and who doesn't like to read labels, was there a point at which you felt like you withdrew a little or something? Was there anything she said or not really? You're muted again somehow. Okay, here we go.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I might have been surprised that she was going to question me about it, but no, I didn't feel anything.
Okay. Okay. So such is the strength of your relationship, right? But probably if you were on the street talking to somebody, you were maybe, Dolly, you were tabling or something that was a stranger.
Yeah, I think if I was a stranger, it's pretty strong. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's kind of go back to that part of the conversation. I think we have time. And where, she's come to you, she's a stranger, you're tabling or you're at an event, for your film or something. And somebody's come up and they've said, oh, I'm following Eat to Live by Joel Fuhrman. I really love how I feel. They disclose that they're whole food plant-based, but they're not vegan. And go kind of back to that point of the conversation and see if there's something you would do differently in that case. Okay.
I can't, I don't know. I would take the same, like if they had a dog or.
Okay.
Wait, she doesn't eat
Would you
animals.
ask them
Okay.
She's not, well, we don't know for sure
she
she's not
doesn't
eating
eat
animals.
I'm trying to get her to be more ethical with
Right.
The animals that we wear and exploit in other ways, correct?
Right. Yeah. Get her either to move toward fully plant-based, because just because somebody's eating whole food plant-based, some of them are still eating, bone broth or eggs. I need an egg once in a while for protein, or, there's all this stuff they're doing. So you don't really know whether she's eating in a way like all plants. And I just want to put a bookmark here, because I want to say that I'm a stand for people being able to say I'm vegan, even if they go once a year and eat their mother's turkey. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't think we need to make the bar so high that nobody can say I'm vegan. But for the purposes of this exercise, you're attempting to sensitize her to the plight of animals, not just to her own health. So you're helping her to bridge that distinction. And I think asking her, do you have cats? Are you cats and dogs lovers? I loved that. There was one point at which I thought somebody might, their defenses might come up, and then we're not going to be able to work with them. And that's when you said, do you still wear leather? That was the point at which I thought, if it was a stranger,
so I would maybe Beth, you can help me with that, because I'm such a I come on as a strong activist, animal activist. I can't I don't know how to soothe it in.
Yeah, I think you're great. And I think there's ways to ask those. I heard an interview with Bruce Friedrich. He was on, which podcast was it? Plant Powered People podcast. I really suggest activists look for that podcast. Bruce Friedrich interviewed on the Plant Powered People podcast. And he was talking about the Socratic method, which is basically not necessarily giving a lot of information, but asking questions. So it was great that you asked a question. I just thought, I thought the transition might be a bit abrupt from someone who was a stranger, and you don't know whether
Yeah, you're right. Maybe can you why don't you take it away?
Okay, I'll try. I'll try.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. So BJ, you're speaking with me. You told me you're following Joel Fuhrman. I gave you a lot of props, like Dolly so beautifully demonstrated. Great, you're doing it. Okay, so let me see. That's really awesome, BJ. And so what are you noticing different about? What are you noticing that's different about your health?
Oh, I just feel better all around. I can move better, lost some weight, good stuff like that.
Oh, that's so amazing. That's wonderful. What about you? Have you noticed any differences in your mood or your mental health?
Oh yeah, I'm happier.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really wonderful. And what do you attribute that happiness to?
Well, sincerely, not role playing, when I gave up dairy. Yeah, I gave up dairy and because it was so much trouble just to have a half a cup of yogurt. So, that's why I did that.
And then that made you happy because it was easier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So-
it made me happy. I have to go into this also. I just, in real life, I felt thrilled. My whole body felt lighter and more movable, and my cholesterol, everything went better.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Sometimes I hear from people that something sort of clicks in them, that when they realize they don't have to eat animals, that helps them to see things differently. Did something like that happen for you?
Yes, a person asked me, well, let's see, how can I say this as a role-playing person? Did something happen to me?
I hear people express that they had a realization that they didn't have to eat animals,
Right,
and that
right,
had an impact.
right. So I did a lot of talking to my friends to try to get them to eat plant-based.
Thank you. How'd that go?
Well, sometimes good, sometimes not so good.
Okay. All right. Okay. And that happens to me too. Sometimes it goes good and sometimes not so good. So I relate, but you're doing it right because you care about your friends,
Yes.
right? Now, see, if I was Dolly here, I would have already talked about my pets, but I don't have any pets, so I can't use that angle. Yeah, sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. For me, one of the topics that sometimes really lands well and sometimes doesn't is I'll talk about human spiritual integrity. Because, honestly, I don't know anybody that would want to hurt a living being for their pleasure. Do you know anybody that would want to hurt a living being for their pleasure?
No.
Like, I don't really know anyone like that. And yet almost everybody is every day, several times a day, supporting an industry that is so cruel and harmful to animals.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I think you can see where this is going. Like, I've brought the
Right.
topic of veganism, I've brought the topic into the conversation without kind of a more maybe confrontational question like, do you still wear leather?
Gotcha. You
So
brought up
it's,
the veganism topic by bringing up animals in general. Yeah. But
yeah, and by bringing up like for me, what's true is I'm a minister. Like, I see people out of spiritual integrity. I see. So just like Dolly, you brought up the animals, and you could do it the same way with that, just a little less, direct. I think, what was I going to say? It's exactly what you said right at the beginning, Dolly. It's like you want to look for what they care about, right? So like looking for what she cares about and just kind of having this conversation. Well, she's already out there proselytizing, but she's proselytizing for one really important part of the equation, which is the diet that helps human health. She's not proselytizing yet for the veganism because she doesn't know it yet. So however you can get that in there with it, whether it's animals or spirituality or the environment, whatever feels true for you, and which the avenue that starts making sense for the person. So how was that?
yes.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna switch and let's see. Dolly, you're a vegan, but you eat all this vegan junk food. Okay. And BJ is going to see if she can support you in taking that next step for your health.
Okay. Dolly, it's good to see you again. Oh, let me unmute her. Yeah. Oh,
Okay, can you hear
it's
me?
good. Yes, I can hear you, and it's so good to see you again. I keep seeing you at these activist meetings. We've been to Cube of Truths, and then we go
Yeah.
out to eat, and we have so much fun. And so let's see. So where are you going to go next time, do you think, to eat after your next event? Or when do you
I
think?
think we might go to like an Indian restaurant and see what I can do.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good. There's a lot of options there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So is that someplace you eat a lot?
Yeah, it's like more like home. and I know how to order. So I tell them, hold the ghee, and I know how to order really nicely at Indian restaurants. So yeah, I prefer, and I love the cooking because it just feels like home.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Well, I love to eat out also, and I used to love to eat burgers and fries. And when I first started eating Indian food, I just loved it. But there was so much oil in it, and I thought, uh-oh, is there something I could change here? Have you ever thought about the oil in the food, or?
I hear about it, because I have heard about trying to cook without oil.
Uh-huh.
And oh gosh, Beth, I've tried.
Okay.
But I know a lot of people say, onions release their own water, and so if I have onions, I can maybe do it. But
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard to
hard.
cook
It's
Indian
hard.
food without oil. But I know, like I heard 1 teaspoon of oil carries like 14 grams of fat. I never knew.
Yeah.
So it's
Well-
interesting, but I guess I just have to find out how I can make my food taste as good.
Right. Well, the major thing I want to talk with you about today, Dolly, because you're somebody I admire so much for your activism and veganism, is how important you are to me in the movement,
Oh,
and how I want you to be healthy, whether it's the oil or whether it's processed French fries and, whatever it is, all that ice cream I see you eating. I'm kind of kidding with you, Dolly, but not on the part of about caring for you. And I think our
I know.
movement needs you, and I don't want you to be unhealthy. And I have been through being unhealthy myself, so unhealthy that I couldn't participate as well. And so what I'd like to say to you and to my other activist friends is care about yourself like you do the animals. And
Yeah.
if there's some way to move forward to something that's, right down to the food, the whole food, I would just love to see you tell me what if you move in that direction a little bit, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, you got a great point, Beth, and I'd be open to maybe you teaching me a few things, cooking together. I want to learn. I want to learn. I really appreciate you reaching out to me like that.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it's good
That
seeing
was-
you today.
That was so beautiful. Let's send them both some love, and mwah.
Mwah.
And then I just want to say, raise your hand if you, like me, got a little bit moved when BJ was talking about how much he cares about Dolly.
Yeah, me too.
That was
That
pretty
was so
pretty amazing.
I
Yeah.
couldn't help but to be sweet back, But I meant it. I meant
Exactly.
it. I really meant it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Okay. So thank you both so much. And we can remove the spotlights from BJ and Dolly. And I will just finish up here because we are at the end of the time together. I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to everybody who commented in the chat, and to Dolly and BJ for your courage in coming up, and those who spoke earlier. I'll put my contact information in the chat, and if you don't yet have it, please feel free to take it, and let's continue this conversation, because we really can bring about that vegan world, and it will come through our marriage of caring for us and the earth and the animals. It's all of the above, because there's only one of us here. Thank you very much. I'll see you in a bit in the grandmother's panel.
Thank you, Reverend Beth. Does anyone have questions? We still have about 5 minutes.
Was trying to obey the time I was given.
No, you're fine.
Okay, all righty. Yeah, if there's questions or comments, I'm happy to take them.
Yeah, I mean, I also, I agree with you completely. It's really about our health, and getting healthy is a radical act in the current system. So
Absolutely.
you're saying, I'm not going to buy your nonsense. I'm not going to get sick for your pharmaceutical companies. I'm not going to dance to your tune. I'm going to get healthy, and I'm going to take care of myself and take care of the rest of the world, right? So you have to do that, to step out of the system. The
Yeah.
system is based on making us diseased.
right,
in order to extract money from us.
right.
And getting healthy is a radical act.
Mhm. Yeah, it's why I really, I will not promote, like I said, I think it's that those transitional types of foods have their place, but I won't promote them. You know, it's like, it's not, it's just not, it's not a new paradigm. It's the same old paradigm. It's just different people getting money. And
Right.
I really wish that in our movement, a lot of that money, those venture capitalists that are investing in these companies, with the same kinds of profit motives. So, you know, the science is can be very shaky about whether it can really ramp up, whether it can really ever be economically feasible, whether it can ever break away from subsidies. We're creating the same system where, you know, they're arguing for subsidies for plant-based foods. And it's like, if it's true, if it's real, if it's right, it doesn't need to be subsidized. And I mean, I like to see us subsidizing fruit and vegetables, but the meat and dairy industry could not stand on its own, and neither can alt meat, some of the, you know, the lab grown meat. So if we want a new paradigm, we need to step into a new paradigm.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
I mean, I not only talk about diet, but also all the other things you need to do to get healthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm guilty. I don't always go to bed on time. But but yeah, there's other pillars of lifestyle medicine, and we do ourselves and our movement and our families a favor and the world a favor if we take really good care of ourselves. You're absolutely right, Dr. Rao.
Gabrielle.
Hi. First of all, I just want to say, and maybe this can wind it up because we do have another speaker, or we do have another speaker soon. I just wanted to say that, first of all, thank you to BJ and Dolly for volunteering. That couldn't have been all that easy, but you did a really great job. And I also want to say that this format, this interactive format, worked really well. And I thought it was great to get us all involved. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. It was more fun for me too.
Oh, Paige, are you there? Okay.
Hi, can you hear
Hi,
me?
Paige. Yeah, so nice to see you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I'm curious, Beth, what resources would you recommend for people? Like, I know that's kind of a blanket question, but do you have any books that you recommend or any other guides or websites and things that you would recommend as resources?
Resources for activists or resources to refer people to for shifting to whole food, plant-based, or veganism? The second one. Okay. Yeah, I think it really depends on what on, you know, their particular concerns and interests. So, you know, if somebody's okay, so say someone's a vegan, but they don't care much about their health, right? That's going to be more of personal conversation, get them caring. But if you do get them moving in that direction, I love to give people for recipes forks over knives, because there aren't any databases out there that quite come up to my standards, because I don't use sugar either. I think some of the it really depends on what they're interested in. If they're interested in a raw food diet, I send them to Tammy Hay. You know what I'm saying? If they're interested in something very prescriptive, like if they think they need to follow a specific type of diet, then I would send them to the Nutritarian, Dr. Joel Furman and the Nutritarian Diet, or to Dr. Greger's app, the Daily Dozen. But if they're just looking for recipes, I'd send them to Forks Over Knives. But oh, and then I mean, there's all sorts of things. If somebody's really concerned about their health, I'll send them to True North. You know what I'm saying? But I think the first part is having that conversation to get them to shift. And in terms of a resource to get people to shift, It really, again, depends on their interests and their proclivities. Dr. Greger's site, nutritionfacts.org, is really great. I often just like kind of do stealth whole food plant-based activism by not mentioning that it's a plant-based site, but somebody will be telling me, oh, I have this situation XYZ, blah, 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 with my health. I'll send them a couple of Dr. Greger videos about it, and they can't help but notice that there's plants on it if they keep watching, right? Or if there's someone that really likes science, the China study, give them something deep to dig into. So it's really about kind of finding what works for people. We really, at Eat for the Earth, our ask is that people eat more plants and less animal products to sustain all life on Earth. But what we teach and model is whole food, plant-based, and oil-free. I don't bother to say sugar-free because sugar is not a whole food, but we don't use sugar and we use very little salt, and it's always organic because it's got to be holistic. It's got to be good for the earth as well. So. But yeah, I think it's very, very personal.
I was in a bookstore, a small bookstore the other day, not that small, but in Malibu, and they had the Dr. Michael Greger's new book called How to Not to Age, I think is what it is. Yeah. And I went to the front desk and I asked the gal, hey, can you show me, do you have any books on veganism or plant-based? And so she showed me some cooking books, and then I pointed out that his book is full of plant-based, and she said, oh, thank you so much. Not on the cover does it say anything about that. So it's really a great book because people are trying to figure out how not to age,
Yeah,
so I thought
absolutely.
That was kind of a cool insight. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. Dr. Greger's going to be here Saturday. Eat for the Earth is bringing him to Santa Cruz. So we sold 400 and some tickets so far, and we still have a couple hundred to go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Susan?
I would just like to mention that my husband is a meat eater. We've been happily married for 21 years, most of the time anyway. And he eats my vegan food, but I cheat on weekends, which means that I'll put out the Beyond Meat and the meat-based foods, and I don't see those companies as a lot of times they may have had the right motivation to try to get people off, so I don't blame them. And I know it has helped my husband to stay with me on the vegan diet. I mean, he's not totally vegan, but he eats my food, and that's all I can ask for, really, when it comes right down to it. So I disagree in the sense that, I try to be really good most weeks, all, 5 days of just healthy foods. And then the weekends, that's when the hot dogs come out and the burgers come out or whatever, and the ice cream comes out, so that I can feel we're not missing anything and that he doesn't feel we're missing anything.
That's so great, Susan. Yeah. Everybody's got to find their own way. Like for me, I try to make the food so tasty that people don't miss anything, even though it's still healthy, because I believe that we can have it all. But you got to find what works for you. And congratulations on getting him mostly plant-based. Thank you very much.
Okay, last question before we move on to Tammy. Sorry, Tammy, for taking up some time from you. Go ahead, Wendy.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Reverend Beth. That was a fantastic presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I think you're spot on, really, when you're talking about the fact that going down the kind of vegan processed food route obviously is not good for health, but is also fitting into a paradigm, which I felt a lot of discomfort about the meat imitations that have come out in recent years. But recognizing also, as Susan just said, that they can have a place. And I just wanted to make a comment about how, I became vegetarian in 71 and then vegan. And when I first started going to health food stores, they were health food stores. They were whole food plant-based. And then as the years have gone by, basically what we now see in health food stores is a huge, bigger and bigger proportion of junk. And health food stores now mimic to a large extent, a traditional supermarket. And I really do feel it has been a capture of that whatever you want to call it, industry by those forces, of wanting to produce more and more processed foods and, taste treats and junk. And also, health food stores that now offer meat, because they claim that their customers are asking for it. And I wonder if you have any reflections on that trend, if it's something that you've considered.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Wendy. It's so important. I remember how sad I was when the last health food store in our county got a meat counter, because none of them had meat counters. And then they all started getting meat counters with this, another kind of greenwashing thing, this idea that you can have sustainable or healthy meat, and more recently, maybe 5-6 years ago, my favorite local store, they lost their contract terminated with their butcher, and they were putting it out. They were looking for a different butcher, and a bunch of us tried to do an action like don't put the butcher counter back in, and we got ignored basically. Well, we didn't get entirely ignored. We got told that they needed that for their economic viability. And I see people walking into these stores and all they're buying is meat because they're under the impression that they're getting better meat there. They're not getting vegetables. They're not getting bulk foods. They're not getting healthy foods. They're just coming there to get organic, grass-fed, range, fed, whatever, free range meat. And yeah, I feel really sad about it. And I absolutely believe your perspective, that it was a big shift in the health food movement away from health and toward profit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Beth. We have to close it there.